Hello everybody, my name is Brian Schnabel. I am the instructor for the Advanced Technical Writing class. I am shooting this video because unfortunately our class was canceled because of snow, and I need to give you the introduction to our class. I know this is highly unusual, I apologize for that, but I think we're going to get through it just fine. So the way these videos work is, unless I make an egregious mistake, I just continue on, and the video should be just fine. So let's start off with the agenda for today's class. Since we're not in purpose, we'll save the introductions for the next time we meet together, but I'll go over what to expect. I'll go over the syllabus review. I'll go over what we call the premise. I'll talk about formats and tools, and then I'll give some demonstrations. So as I said, when we meet next time, I'll ask you to introduce yourself and tell us some of these things. But I'll start off. My name is Brian Schnabel. I'm the Senior Manager of the Web Experience team at Tektronix. We have a number of websites in a number of languages. I'm also the DITA Content Management System Manager and Programmer at Tektronix. I chair the OASIS XLIF Technical Committee, and I'm a member of the OASIS DITA Technical Committee. I've managed the technical writing team here at Tektronix, and this is my third year of teaching classes at Portland State University. I've taught a couple rounds of the DITA class, and I've taught the Trends in Translation class. Something interesting about me, I'm a musician. I've done an album with the British singer Odette Barris, and I've also done a solo album. They're both available on iTunes, and the solo album is available at a lot of other places too, including Amazon. So every week I'll show you this in the slides. We'll have today's class, which will be in black, and then grayed out we'll have a preview of what the next class will be, including the reading assignment, what I will ask you to have completed by the time that class starts. So let's go ahead with the syllabus review. If you could please go into D2L and go into course content under resources and pull up the syllabus. You can follow along. So this is Advanced Technical Writing. These are my office hours. This is where we meet, Newberger Hall, 446. We meet every other Tuesday, and then on alternate Tuesdays, I will give you a URL to a video, and you will do a video version. That is to say that this is a hybrid course. So regarding technical communications and technical communication profession, speed, accuracy, and completeness are keys to success. Understanding technical standards and the tools that leverage the standards will enable technical writers to create, deliver, and publish accurate and complete information quickly and concisely. Technical writers increasingly work on content management systems. Writing documents is giving way to writing topics, and topics are often assembled in workflows separate from the writing. More and more information technical writers provide is published to multiple formats in multiple language and is displayed in a variety of screens, pages, and devices. And we'll go over why that matters through the course of this class. So this is an old advertising campaign. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. And that's to say that we're going to learn technical writing in a new way in this class. Regarding the approach to this class, this is an advanced class that tracks the trends. The instructor is from the professional industry. The class will prepare students for professional industry and will be conducted from a professional industry perspective more than from an academic perspective. If one were to think of technical writing as a continuum with writing on one end and technical on the other end, this class is weighted heavily toward the technical end of the continuum. And this is because everybody will expect you to be a good writer in the technical writing profession. What will distinguish you is the degree to which you are technically proficient. And we'll make sure that at the end of this class you are technically proficient. This class has two parts: the technical part, which introduces tools, standards, and systems that will distinguish students with technical proficiency, and the writing part, which will empower students with must-have writing skills. To state this as plainly as possible, this technical course may take writers and technical communicators a bit out of their comfort zone, but it will prepare students to use content management systems in professional workplace in a way that will set them ahead of most candidates competing for a profession in technical communication field. Please don't be alarmed. Lots of people have taken classes from me, and the first class, it seems like it's going to be so hard, but in reality, it's not difficult at all. You'll do just fine. Please just stick with it, and I'm sure you'll find that to be true. Upon successfully completing this class, students will have a high understanding and proficiency of the tools and standards such as XML, DITA, HTML, and XLIF, be able to understand and articulate the principal benefits and processes of web content management systems and component content management systems, including content creation, translation, and publication. The students will be able to produce and articulate the value of clear, accurate, consistent, complete writing, and students will be able to understand and respect their audience through the use of personas, best practices, and must-have writing skills. Your grades will be 10% coming from quizzes, 20% coming from the midterm exam, midterm exam, 20% coming from midterm projects, which we call deliverables, 30% from the final exam, and then 20% from the final deliverable or the final project. Graduate students will have approximately 30% more requirements than undergraduate students on each of the 3 projects. The 3 projects are listed. I'll get to those in a minute. There's some software for this class. It's all free, nothing to buy. You'll need to have Firefox as a browser to do the EasyData component content management system. There are 2 texts for this class, the Insider's Guide to Technical Writing and the XML Pocket Reference. What I'll do is I'll go over each of the days and what you can expect for each of the classes. Today is the introduction class, Class 1. It was meant to be live, face-to-face, but unfortunately we weren't able to do that because of the weather, so I'm giving you this video. And we already went over the agenda for today's class. The next class will be an online class. I will provide the URL for that video, so you'll always want to go back to this syllabus to make sure that you have the latest URL. The videos will always be available on the Monday before the Tuesday class. You will be expected to watch the video, to pause the video along the way and do the exercises that the video explains for you to do. So next week, January 17th, will be we'll start the technical writing, the technical part. We'll look at XML and DITA. What is XML? Why do we care? What is DITA? Why do we care? We'll look at the DITA Open Toolkit. Please, by then, read the Insider's Guide chapters that I've identified there, and the XML Pocket Reference chapters that I've identified there. The third class, this will actually be the first time we'll meet in person, will be the 24th of January. We'll have a quiz on XML and DITA. Hint, hint, always look at the slides. It will be open book, open slides, open everything, except you can't talk to your neighbors or the others, I should say other students. Can't use your cell phones to call people, but other than that, it's completely open. Hint, hint, most of what you'll need to know will be from the slides. So bring the copy of the slides with you. Then we'll start our component content management system. We'll look at EasyData for the DITA portion, and we'll look at the web CMS. We'll look at Drupal. And then please do the reading ahead of time. For class 4, we will look at translation. This will be a video class. I will put the URL here. Please do the reading ahead of time. Class 5 will be in person. We'll have another quiz on content management systems and translation. After the quiz, we'll start technical writing, the writing part. We'll talk about personas, and then I will talk about the deliverables. I'll give you a really good idea of what to expect and what to do on the deliverables. And then the 6th class will be online. I'll give you the URL for that. We'll have the midterm exam. Which will be on XML, DITA, CMS, and personas, and then I'll walk through the midterm projects. Class 7, the midterm projects will be due. The first two, which will be D1 and D2. You'll need to give a 15-minute presentation to the class on your data sheet, which is D1, and participate in a code review, and I'll explain how that goes. And then we'll review the midterm exam questions. Okay, so then the 8th class will be February 28th. That will be online, and we'll talk about the must-have tech writing skills, clear, articulate, consistent, complete documentation, writing best practices, the writing part, and the intangibles. And I'll ask you to read the reading assignment listed there. Class 9 will be putting the customer first, respecting your audience, being prepared, and then we'll talk about preparedness for the final project. Please do the reading. Class 10 will be March 14th. That will be online. That will be the final project will be due, so you'll just have to send those to me. And then the 21st of March, we will have the final, and it will be on XML, DITA, CMS, personas, must-have tech writing skills, and putting the customer first. The deliverables, the first deliverable is the DITA Open Toolkit HTML and PDF. Graduate students will be expected to do online help. You'll need to create a DITA task topic, a concept topic, and a reference topic, and a DITA map. Then with the DITA Open Toolkit, create HTML and PDF, and for graduate students, online help. All of this from the command line. And please don't worry, you'll know exactly how to do it because I'm going to go over in detail how to do that. The D2 project is the Easy DITA data sheet. I will have explained that to you, but in Easy DITA, you will be expected to do an HTML and PDF version of the data sheet. The graduate students will be expected to export the DITA files and compile them in the DITA Open Toolkit. I know this sounds confusing and complicated and perhaps hard, but believe me, you'll be totally prepared for this. And then D3 will be to create a Drupal website and home page and product page and data sheet using the Acquia Cloud Drupal 8 web content management system. The graduate students will be expected to do also a solutions page. And don't worry, we will go over this thoroughly. You'll know completely how to do it. So now please go to D2L and look at the course content resources tab and look at the premise which I've uploaded. So this is the premise that if you think of a company, we will run our class as if we all work for this company. So all of us in the class work for a company called Steady Technical Incorporated. Steady Technical is a global manufacturing company of solar measurement in the solar measurement industry. Steady Technical sells hardware and software used to measure solar intensity, quality, commercial viability. Steady Technical is headquartered in Beaverton, Oregon, with manufacturing facilities in Beaverton, Beijing, and marketing offices in Beaverton, Beijing, Tokyo, London, Mumbai, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo. Steady Technical has strong markets in the US, China, Japan, Germany, Russia, and the UK. They have emerging markets in India, Korea, Mexico, and Brazil. Steady Technical publishes technical marketing information in English, Simplified Chinese, Japanese, Korean, German, Russian, Spanish, and Portuguese. Steady Technical creates web pages, manuals, online help, data sheets, and technical documentation. We have Steady Technical has websites in China, Japan, Germany, Russia, UK, India, Korea, Mexico, and Brazil. We have personas in Steady Technical. There are senior, mid-level, and junior personas that Steady Technical has created. And then Steady Technical has a documentation team. That's what we're on, and we're expected to do all of these things. So that's the premise. And as we go through this class, we will march toward that premise. Should be fun. Okay, so now let's talk about formats and tools. So there are three things to think about. There's a standard, there's the tool that uses that standard, and then there's the value that that tool and that standard provide. So XML is a standard, and the tools that use that are tools like Madcap Flare and MS Word, and the value is to edit XML documents. And then DITA is actually an XML. DITA is a standard which is written in XML, whose framework is in XML, and the tools that use that are XMetal, Oxygen, and others. And the value of that is that you can edit topics and maps in DITA. HTML is another standard. Tools that use HTML are like Dreamweaver or MS Word. You can edit HTML web pages. CSS is an HTML website format standard. Tools like Dreamweaver or Blueprint use this standard. XLIF is a localization translation open standard. Tools like Trados and Swordfish use this. The value is that it's the format for computer-aided translation tools and translators. When you think about XML, DITA, and XLIF combined, now you're talking about a content management system. Examples of those are EasyDITA and Ixiosoft. If you talk about XML, HTML, and XLIF, now you're talking about a web content management system. Tools that use that are Drupal, WordPress, and Sitecore. So throughout this class, we'll learn more about the distinctions and learn more about those standards and tools that technical writers really need to be familiar with. A lot of people get confused between open standards and open source. So an open standard is a specified instruction for achieving something that is independent of a manufacturer's or vendor's and is available in the public domain, generally without charge. Open standards often provide standardized ways to code a solution for a task. Examples are HTML and .doc. An open standard is HTML, a proprietary format which is the opposite of open standard, is something like a Microsoft Word .doc file. Open source, on the other hand, is software whose source code is made available for use or modification as users or other developers see fit. It's usually developed as a public collaboration and made freely available. The opposite of open source is commercial. So Drupal would be an open source tool, and Dreamweaver would be a commercial tool. Open standards are not software, they're not tools, they're not proprietary, and they're not de facto. They are solution specifications for creating software tools that solve a common need. Some well-known open standards are HTML, XML, DITA, USB. Now let's talk about writing formats. So for this class, we will be interested in XML, DITA, and HTML, and you'll learn those writing formats. You'll also learn about content management systems. You'll learn about EasyDITA and Drupal 8, and we'll actually use those content management systems. We'll learn a little bit about the translation workflow. For that, we'll look at XLIF. The way XLIF works is it supports the extract and merge paradigm, which says that you start off with your source materials. In our case, it'll be EasyDITA or Drupal. You extract to the localizable text and format information into a single XLIF file. You open the XLIF file with your translation tool. You translate the text. You save it back into XLIF with the tool. You now have a bilingual XLIF file that you can convert to its original format, and you will then have translated content management systems which can create the translated website or the translated content. So I will give you some demonstrations, and you're not expected to know these. This is just me demonstrating some concepts that we will cover throughout the course of this class. Let's start off with XML. XML is the underlying open standard. Most or maybe all tools technical writers use have XML as their underlying framework. Technical writers who understand this framework and can troubleshoot at an XML level distinguish themselves from the pack. XML is extensible markup language. It's a text-based markup format. XML is the method for creating, editing, storing, and processing electronic data and documents. XML is ubiquitous. That is to say, it's everywhere. It's in your phone, it's in your car, it's everywhere. XML is the standard in which all localization and publication standards are modeled. So if we look at our web page for our university, this is XML. It just happens to be rendered in a browser. if you look at the view source, you will see that the XML code is actually what the browser is rendering. To do that, you would right-click Page View Source, and then we could tell that this is XML by the existence of what we call a doc type definition. And you'll learn more about that later. The purpose of me telling you this now is just so that you understand that XML really is everywhere. So the underlying XML, for example, for this part of this web page, is actually readable and then rendered in the browser. Similarly, this Microsoft Word file is XML. If you were to change the extension to .zip and then extract it, you would see that it is actually XML. Another example is InDesign. This is a common desktop publishing tool. If you export to XML, you see that all of the elements are indeed XML. So XML is everywhere. So the reason we care about that, or one of the things that you can do, is if your source format is XML, you can then use XSL, or the tool you're using can use XSL, Extensible Stylesheet Language, to transform that XML into any of the formats that your deliverables may need to take. For example, we could make HTML using XSLT. We can use XML using XPath and XSLT. We can make PDF by using XSLFO. So I will give you some demonstrations on how that works. So to convert XML from one format to another, you begin with a source XML format and a desired target. You write an XSLT that will transform the source to the target. You apply XSL processing, sometimes automated via the XML tool, and sometimes you just run it from a command line, and then you get a resulting file. So this is an example of a tool that has the XSL embedded in the tool, so all you really need to do is press the Apply Transformation button, and you get the transformation, in this case a PDF file. In other cases, you actually have to, or you can, run the XML from the command line. To do that, you have a working directory. You have an XSL processor. For the one we'll use in class is Saxon 9. You need a source XML file, and you need the XSLT script. So in this case, I have a source XML file. It's just plain old XML. I have an XSLT script that says, here's what you do with that XML. I invoke the command line either from Windows or from Mac, or Windows 10, it's slightly different. And then I write my my syntax, java -jar saxon9.jar -o. Then my output is syllabus.html. The input is syllabus XML, and then the XSLT is XML to HTML.xsl. Press enter, and the result I get is it was XML, now it's HTML, and I can view that in a browser, and it looks like a web page. Okay, so let's look at how that works. So if I go into my I will provide all of these files for you, by the way, but don't worry about that. For today, we are simply doing a demonstration. So I have, in this case, my XSL processor, which is Saxon 9. I have my XML, which is first.xml. So if I look at that in the browser, I see, or excuse me, in a text editor, I see that this is just plain old XML. I've got class as one of my elements, metadata, paragraph, and things like this. I also have an XSL, first.xsl, and what this is, and don't worry, you'll learn more about this in the future, but it's just a number of instructions that say when you see a class element, make some things out of it. When you see metadata, make some things out of it. When you see course description, make some things out of it. When you see grading, make some things out of it, etc. So I'm going to use that same syntax that I said before, and I'm going to run that XSL script on, oops, I guess I don't still have it. Okay, so I'll have to do it by hand. So I'm going to say JAVA space minus jar space saxon 9.jar space minus o space syllabus dot html. My input is going to be first.xml, and my XSLT script is going to be first.xsl. Assuming I didn't make any typos, I hit enter. It does the processing, and sure enough, it created the syllabus .html. And if I look at this in a browser, I see that it is indeed HTML. And if I look at, if I look at it in a text editor, and then if I look at it in the browser, I see that it is indeed HTML that is rendered nicely in the browser. So that's kind of how XML works. And don't worry, we will get into this in much more detail. I'm just giving you a high-level demonstration now. The next one is DITA. DITA is the Darwin Information Type Architecture. DITA is an XML vocabulary for topic-based authoring. We will learn much more about it. This is DITA. This is rendered DITA. This is DITA in a content management system. It's made up of topics and maps. And this is DITA in a code view. This is a DITA map in a code view. This is an actual DITA topic. So what the map does is it ties together all of these hundreds or thousands of topics, and it lets you process those either into a PDF file or an HTML file or whatever output that you like. One of the ways that you can do that is through the DITA Open Toolkit. This is how we do this at the command line. And don't worry, I'll tell you much more details about this when we get into this part of the class. I will tell you how to install the DITA Open Toolkit. It will be available on D2L. If you're using Windows, you then just double-click the Start Command.bat. If you see a warning that says that your PC is protected, just click the More Info button and click Run Anyway, and you'll get your command line. If you're on the Mac, you have to navigate to that directory and type sh space start command.sh. And again, don't worry, I will go through this in a lot more detail when we go into this section. So there are some things you can do to make sure that your Open Toolkit is working correctly. And then to make the content happen, you need to type a command. And in this case, we have a command that will give us HTML and another command that will give us PDF. And then if you look at the output, you'll see that you have indeed your HTML and your PDF. So let's pause and show you just how that works. So if I go into my DITA Open Toolkit, and again, I'll make this available to you on D2L. And since I'm on Windows, I'm just going to double click the Start Command BAT. And it indeed gave me that warning, but I've fixed that warning so that then it just gives us a command line. So from this command line, I know that I have some test files that come with the DITA Open Toolkit. I have some samples here. So in this samples directory, I have some tasks and some DITA maps, and these things put together will make the output that I want. So I'm going to tell the Open Toolkit to make that output, so I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to be careful not to copy past the space. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it here in my tool, and then I'm going to hit enter, and it tells me, oops, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I was in the wrong command line. This is the command line I needed to be in. So I'm going to paste it here. The other one was from the previous exercise. And it tells me some things that might worry me, but I know not to be worried about this. It's doing its thing, and when I get this return with no errors, that means that it worked. So I look in that that directory that it just made, and indeed, if I hit the index, here are the DITA topics that have been turned into the DITA that has been turned into, in this case, HTML. So that was just a whirlwind demonstration. Now let's talk about HTML. HTML is hypertext markup language. It's a W3C standard. It's the native language that browsers use. And let's just see how that works. So in a text editor, it's just dirt simple. You can type these tags, save it as a file name, and open it in your browser, and it'll look like text, or excuse me, like a web page. So let's just test that theory. So if I do a new text file, HTML, close, H1, my great web page, close the H1, and put a paragraph in there. Close the paragraph and close the HTML. And I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it right here in my, I'm going to go up a level. I'm going to save it right here in my HTML directory. I call it my.html. Save it. And if I go into my HTML directory now, I'll see that, and I'll double click it, and sure enough, it looks like a web page. That's just how easy HTML is. If I were in class now, I would be asking how many of you are familiar with this or have seen this, and I bet you a lot of hands would go up. XLIF is the XML localization interchange file format. It's used, I showed you this before, to do translations. It's very simple. You have segments, you have a source element, and in the target element you want your translator to translate that, for example, to hola. And then, for example, you could have an InDesign file. You export the XML. You transform the XML to XLIF. You give this to your translator. The translator will translate the file using a computer-aided translation tool, and you have the translated XLIF file, which you transform back into its original XML source and open it in InDesign, and it works just fine. So I'm going to skip past these frequently asked questions and talk about content management systems. So content management systems mean different things to different people. We are concerned with component content management systems, so that's the Easy DITA that I'll show you in a minute. The reason you need a component content management system is that there are thousands or millions of topics out there and map files. The content management system manages that complexity. So if we think of this simple printed 26-page data sheet, if we look at how many topics it takes to make that up, there are 205 topics in this data sheet. That gives it a density factor of, if you say there are 26 pages, 205 topics, 23 maps, 24 images, it takes 252 files to make this data sheet. And if you say how complex are all of the files on my website, that means that you have over 1 million files. How would you like to manage those on a file system? Obviously, a component content management system is a better way to go. So the one we'll be using in this class is called Easy DITA. I will show you Easy DITA now. So it requires that you use Firefox. So I'll just log in to my URL. Let me just make sure that I have that password correct. Oh no, that's not the right password. Good thing I checked. So we log in, and we see that it has an author area, and this is where we do our work. In this case, I'm looking at a data sheet. There's a data sheet master file. It references a bunch of different topics, and then from this topic from this, all of these topics that are held together with this map, we can then publish this to HTML or PDF. The next thing I will show you is our Acquia Drupal, Acquia Cloud Drupal content management system. We will be using this in our class. And it's also very simple. I've created this simple page. This is very similar to what you will create. It's not finished yet, but if you log in, and you will each have your own account, just like you would with EasyData. You'll each have your own account of Acquia, and I will show you how to get that. And you log in, you'll have a username and a password, my username. And my password. Log in, and then I'm able to do a lot of things that I will show you about. I will teach you, and you'll get this, you'll understand it, and you'll be able to do these things. This is the actual content management system that lets you create and manage this website. So that's what we will be using. And that's it. So we've gone through. Apologies that this class probably didn't work as well as a video, but hopefully you get the gist of it. When we meet in person, it will be very nice. We'll go over all of this stuff, and I assure you, you'll do just fine. So thank you very much for attending, everybody. Thank you for watching this video. Look forward to actually meeting you in person. Thank you. Now all I have to do is figure out how to turn off the recorder, and we'll all be in business. Let's see here. Maybe it's this. Isn't this silly? I can do everything except for turn off the recorder. Control Shift.